Hi, this is Lori from To the Trade from Interior Design Community. And hi, Niall. I have Niall with me.
Hi.
Always awesome to see you, Niall. It's been a little bit since High Point now. So we're back at it. We're working, we're doing our thing,
Yep.
getting back in the day to day. And we have Emanuela Schneider with us, and she does marketing for interior designers. And so this is a topic I know many of you will want to listen to because it's one of those things that every designer feels is just such a burden on their day. They don't want to do the marketing. It's just it feels like another job on top of their already busy job. And it's something that they would love to outsource to someone like you, Emanuela. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh, well, thank you for having me again.
Yes.
I do social media for interior designers specifically. So mainly right now is Instagram management and strategy and Pinterest management and strategy, but also, email newsletters, blogs, LinkedIn, TikTok, the whole deal.
I love that. I love that. I love specifically because I really do believe a good trifecta for designers is like having Instagram, at least if you're going to have like Instagram. To me, Instagram, Google My Business or the Google Business reviews section, and then an email newsletter, hopefully with some sort of content, like a blog part of it for your website, are like the most important still to this day, don't you think?
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of Google.
Yeah, we have been talking about this behind the scenes that we kind of think that that's going to be changing with ChatGPT, their search going up. And I know I sent Niall an article about that this week, and I really wanted to talk to you about it because we're seeing that even Apple is saying that Google searches are down. Now, Google will tell you they are not, but the truth is they are because people are ChatGPTing instead of Googling. And they're integrating more and more AI into phones and into lots of different tools that we have out there. I find I use ChatGPT all day long. And so some of my strategies in the past year have been how can I come up in ChatGPT for results versus how can I come up in Google for in results. I mean, I still think Google's very important and it interplays with results for ChatGPT, but it's not entirely the same. In fact, we did something yesterday. I'm just going to give this to you as a tip real quick because this is brand
I love
new.
it.
We did like a little bit of code you can put in your header for your website that will make your site show up more in ChatGPT that we got from ChatGPT. So hopefully it's working. But we're always thinking from a blogging strategy, how can this show up more in ChatGPT versus how can this show up in Google now? I mean, really, really turning that dial. So I'm sure that there are designers too that are starting to think that because I think that Google's results have always been really good, but it's also full of noise and there's a lot of pay to play. So from a designer perspective, I'm sure some of you have like had friends Google your like who's the best interior designer in your area. And sometimes you come up and sometimes you don't. And you're like, why is this other designer who's not even in my town coming up above me in my own town?
Exactly.
Things like that are
Yeah.
just super annoying because maybe they're gaming the system with blog posts or maybe they're gaming the system with reviews and using your town as keywords in those reviews. So I'm just curious, what do you see as the changing dynamic between Google, ChatGPT, and how people are found in marketing?
Yeah, I could not agree with you more in that sense. Like I barely use Google.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's more ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT gives you a lot of really good marketing ideas and strategies, whereas Google, you're gonna have to like dig a lot to, find exactly what you want. But in terms of if your strategy changes, I'm not entirely sure. Like I have not heard of that header thing, which I do want to
Yeah,
to
you
know
should
more
explore
about
it.
later.
We
Oh
just did it
yeah.
ourselves yesterday, so it's like new thing to think about. But I've definitely
Yeah.
been thinking, what are these results? Like as you ask ChatGPT, you can see it's looking at websites. Like, why does it prefer some website over another? And how can I make sure my website is coming up? Certainly, I would think for designers, if there's a client out there on ChatGPT saying, like, who is the best designer in my area? You want it to come up. You want your name to be in that mix for sure, so that you're one of the people that they look at. And so that's tricky. I think that that's going to be very difficult because it's not as easy to game the system, I wouldn't think. I mean, there aren't so far ads on ChatGPT that are or ways to game it as much at this point. But I think that that is something that we need to be thinking about as we're doing this, as we're exploring this very, very unique change in the way people find things, that we're part of that solution. So
yeah, I think it's all about, the continuous study,
right.
Which is in social media, it's what we do anyways. Like we have to study every week what the new algorithms are. So
right.
With AI, I know that AI is going to change so much in the next 5 years.
Oh, sure.
Right. So in terms of the strategy of like Google versus ChatGPT, I would still say stick to content that works with keywords.
Right.
And, uses SEO.
Right.
I think either way, it does, like, it looks at websites and pulls from websites that has those keywords. Yeah. So
I have,
for sure.
So speaking of that, I have a custom ChatGPT for blogging. So I've done that for a long time now. I have a very specific format because we use our questions of the day that come on Interior Design Community. We typically will, screenshot some of the best quotes, and then we will upload all of that to ChatGPT with like some set rules. And I will tell you, just from my own personal experience, people listening, like, honestly, you have to keep telling it your rules over and over and again, even if you have a custom ChatGPT, because it forgets. You don't think if you're building the custom ChatGPT, it will not forget, but it does. So my main rules are, I have a whole list of 500 overused words for ChatGPT that I think are tells. So I say, you don't use these 400 words. You don't use M dashes or hyphens because they use them way too much. They're like ridiculous with their M dashes. Do not use a format of question and clarifying statement like your fear of being seen. It's just a call to a bigger platform. Things like that. You can't use that. Do not use phrases like this isn't a sales page, it's a portal. You want to stay away from any obvious ChatGPT cliches in formatting. Do not use final thought. That is a big time tell. Or at a conclusion to the article. Must be 1,500 words, must be formatted so that it can be found in ChatGPT, must be formatted to copy and paste into WordPress, because then I use the visual editor afterwards. So it gives me HTML, by the way, which I put into WordPress. Then I visual edit it because it's way faster. Must include full quotes from my screenshots, must include links to their Instagrams, must include 2 internal links to my own website, and give me 2 ideas for resources based on this article that we should be providing for interior designers. And then I kind of use those as follow-up articles later on down the line. So that is, and I also have given it a ton of samples of my own writing so that it knows my style and how I write. And that is sort of I have to copy and paste this same phrasing every single time, no matter what, even with my custom ChatGPT, because it doesn't remember. It will do a blog post that has 800 words and nothing is linked. And I'm like, did you not remember the rules, ChatGPT? Like, I start to get mad at it. We had some ground rules here and you're not following them.
Yeah. What I've realized that like it has to do a lot is if you know that it's like getting something right. I love that like we're talking about like how to train AI, but yeah,
right.
If you notice that it's doing something right, you have to say like, keep this in your memory for the next time, and then it like saves. But sometimes it just doesn't save.
It just doesn't remember. It's just like, and then you find yourself yelling at it, or not really, but kind of like getting mad at it. You're like, come on. We talked about this before, ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Just give me what I want. I need to move on with my life. because
Yeah.
the whole point is that, and I'm sure that the designers come to you too with this. It's like you want, they want to do a lot of marketing. I mean, I don't think there's any designer that doesn't want to have several blogs out and have great viral videos and have, clients asking questions of them on their Instagrams and, a dynamic give and take. But they just don't have the time. And also when they do have the time, they're doing it and sometimes it feels like for nothing. Like they're just not hitting because it's not, maybe it's, inconsistency or whatever, but then it just feels sometimes like I did all that work for nothing. I got 5 likes
Exactly.
and 2 comments from my cousin. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is not what I wanted. Why am I spending my time on this when I have a deadline and projects and 10 phone calls to make? So how are you working with designers? Because I think that the biggest part of that is, I know in conversations I've had with Niall, it's like the idea of handing it over is so difficult for a designer because they know what they know and they want to make sure that their voice is mimicked correctly, that they're the way that they would present themselves. How do you handle that part of what you do?
Yeah. So the voice part and the branding, I have a full onboarding form before I actually start working with them, and they fill it out. And basically in there, it does talk about like, what their goals are, what they actually want in the next year out of marketing and social media, but also what words they like, what words they don't like, if there are any pages they want to emulate, if there are any, other designers that they don't really love the wording, if they like short or sweet phrases, or they like more formal, more serious, all of that. And then basically with that, you create like the 1 month content calendar. And then for the first month that I've worked with them, they review it obviously before posting and anything if they want to edit. Usually they don't give like many edits. They're just like, oh, maybe change this word, maybe change that word. And then based on that, you kind of like get to know what they actually want out of it, because sometimes they say like, oh, I don't love this, and I stay away from that wording. But then you do stay away from that wording, or you use a specific wording. And then while you do that, they realize that, they actually, what they say they want isn't what they actually want.
That's like an interior designer with their own client. So I think they'd be familiar
Exactly.
with that.
Yeah. And so basically it's, it's kind of like a work in progress within the first month. So you get to know and understand what they actually want without them actually saying it. It's the whole feedback process of it that actually works.
Now, in that, do you ever give them feedback where you're telling them, look, I've looked at your website. I think I've looked at what your options are, and I don't think that those align with how your brand looks on the outside. Do you talk to them about what it is you think their brand, you know, represents and how that aligns with what they want to do? So, for instance, let's just say it's a designer and they want it to be very serious, but you can tell their work is very informal. You know what I mean? It's not very serious. And they're probably the kind of client, maybe they have young families and things like that. Like, do you ever push back and tell them, look, when I'm looking at your website, it looks very fun and playful and young families, and then a serious tone might not go over as well with that audience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You have to give the hard truth. Otherwise, you're just wasting money.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you do that. I love that you will critique it, because so many people that I've witnessed doing social media are just like, yeah, I'll do that. And then they're like, well,
Yeah.
it's not gonna, they know in their head it's not gonna work, but they just don't want to argue. So they're just like, I'll give you what you want. It's just it's
Yeah.
not gonna work, but I'll give you what you want, And it is hard to say to someone, that's not, like externally, I'm looking at it, this is why it's not getting the traction you want it to get.
Yeah.
Tough
I
job.
think, yeah. Sometimes I feel like it's probably for most businesses, not even just interior designers, but it's really difficult to separate like what the business is and what the person is, and
Yes.
what's going to be beneficial for you as in a marketing standpoint, and what you really want to post as a person.
Right. Right. Well, I've seen
Yeah.
that, you and
Should
I
you
have had
separate the
conversations
two?
about
Should they be separated?
Sorry?
Do you think they should be separated?
No, I think there should be a mix. But
Okay.
yeah, you want people to get to know you and the person behind the brand, but
Yeah.
you also want to post something that the audience is gonna like, not that you're gonna like.
Yeah. I struggle with that. See, I never know if you should post both, or I just, and how do you infuse that, and like what's too much, what's too little. So I'm just, was curious when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that you had a post. I'm not sure if it was when you posted, but it was like one of your recent posts. And it was like the High Point Market and saying that you had like a full camera of photos. And then you just posted a picture of yourself. And I was going to say, like, Niall, you should totally be posting. That was a wonderful caption. It was so good. And I would not change the caption, but I would totally
Yeah.
post like a picture of you and then what you'd actually took a shot of, because then
Okay.
yeah, it's like you wanted to get all of those words out there, and that's for
Yeah.
you and also for the audience, but the audience does want to see like what you're doing in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I thought, yeah, and I think like I take so long to post, like I'm like literally in my head about posting. So what I did in High Point, what I tried to do was I tried to put everything in stories this time. Like I didn't even think about when I took a picture of something, I just put it in stories. Like everything I took pictures of, I put in stories, because otherwise I will deliberate and I will say, oh, maybe it's got to go in Lightroom, and then maybe I should straighten it. And then maybe it's got, like, literally I will perfect it and then I'll post it. But when I put it in stories, I started perfecting like maybe the first two, and then I was like, nope, just take the picture and just send it. Like take the picture and send it, take the picture and just send it. And then I started doing it that way. And then like people who were taking pictures of me and like tagging me, I just was reposting that. And like, I just was like, send it to stories, send it to stories, send it to stories, just to sort of keep the activity going, I guess. But I'm horrible when it comes to the feed though. It's bad. It takes me forever to post, really forever. So
It is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard to get out of your head sometimes. I mean, especially for you, Niall, because you've got or not for all the designers, because you've got so many choices and there's only so many days that are pretty, right? I mean, there's not many days that you're doing the work. You're like, okay, here's
yeah,
me on the computer. Here's me talking to my rep. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like that's your day to day. So, it's
yeah.
not always the reveal or an install
Exactly.
or, those are few and far between.
Or like you just don't think that the things you think are exciting to other people. Like for instance, like the furniture that I got from Italy, like from Parma, like Italy, came yesterday, and like I was exhausted, right? And then but when I got home from my office, but when I saw that crate, like you should have seen me, like I was like on top of the crate, like cracking, because I was like to get the furniture out, and I'm like so excited, I'm jumping like. I'm just thinking to myself, like, I wonder if this is like what kids feel like when they get like a new video game and they're up all night. And I just kept walking by the living room, looking at the chair, like, you know what I mean? That's exciting to me, but I'm like, that's not gonna be exciting to anybody on social media. Like, so like, I don't post that kind of stuff. So
I
you never
do
know.
think that's very exciting though. If I saw
Yeah.
you up on that crate and opening it up and then like looking at it, like just what you just told me, that
Yeah,
little setup is
yeah,
it makes people feel the excitement of real, and what you're saying is like buying really good furniture, that when you're treating yourself to like really good pieces, it's such a joy. It brings you so much joy. And I think people don't understand that. I was just watching a video today of personal assistant, and she went to Pottery Barn for her client to go
Oh
take
my
pictures
God.
of all the furniture because she needs a new sectional. And I was just like, don't go to Pottery Barn. Like, don't. Like you have an assistant. You have that kind of money. You have more than Pottery Barn money. You don't need to spend it at Pottery. So I was like,
Yeah.
look at Kristen Drowan's furniture. Her custom furniture is awesome. Like you should absolutely check her out. So yeah, I
that's
just
funny.
think that I think those kinds of things are really exciting. And I think the meta message, the thing that's beneath it, is you're translating to a client what it feels like to buy nice pieces which is you want them to feel. You want them to
Yeah.
be just as excited when they get that brand new chair and they're
Yeah.
looking at it and they're like, and that's relatable to me. That's very relatable.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, I would even caption it like, "This is how you can feel if you work with me." You know?
right.
See,
Yeah.
see, I don't think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I think that's the beauty of having somebody like you. Because I think for a lot of us, I don't want to speak for all designers, but I think a lot of us just don't know what we don't know. You know what I mean? I think, we have to have somebody pull it out of us. It's not normal for us to talk about it. We're doers by nature, right? So it's one of those things, like even when your client says, you really need 6 weeks. I do. I need 6 weeks to go back and put it together, because I don't walk out of here and it comes to me automatically. Like, I have to think about it, and then I have to, like, I don't even know the questions to ask myself sometimes right away about your space. Sometimes it does come to me right away. Sometimes it doesn't come to me until like 7 days later in the grocery store, at a concert or in the shower. Like, sometimes it takes a minute. It's gotta percolate, if you will. And so, like, I think that applies to what we do, period. And so, not knowing what to put out there, it's super important to have somebody like you that sort of pulls those things out, because we don't know what to say or show or talk about.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like,
Yes.
you would be, Niall, if you were working with Emanuela today, would you be comfortable with assignments? Like, this day, I want you to do this, take a video of this day, and with examples. Like, if she was giving you,
Yeah.
here's a video, go watch this, try to just make a little video of yourself doing that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
something that, because is that a little bit of what you do, Emanuela? Like, do you give them this, like, I've seen
Directives,
different
yeah.
social media people do that, where they're like, here's a viral video, watch it, and then take these videos for me, and then she can put some of that together. It's not
Yeah,
always
exactly.
you having to do all of it.
Yeah. What I like to do is like a mix of both things. So I do like I have a document that's like a real directives. And then in it, obviously there's going to be like a title, like, I don't know, inspirations for spring, something like that. And then, there's like an interior designer who already created the reel, just as an example. And then it would be like, Niall, do you have any of these shots? Can you give me like these shots, 8-second reel? And then that's it. And then you give it to me and I create the reel. But obviously there is some that basically, like I just did today with a client. I just basically asked, like, hey, how was your week? What did you do? What were like any interesting, moments of your week? And like Niall would, for example, say like the whole sofa thing. And then I would be like, cool, can you just send me a shot of that? Because that's like you being original versus like, copying someone else. And copying someone else, like sometimes obviously wouldn't be copying 100%, but, I'm getting into the trend. Obviously, like, works if your audience wants to see that. But it is really good to have like these unique ideas and actually see like what you specifically are doing during the week.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
and also it could speak to, you've got something in Parma, and like, I love that. It's such a sweet, brings up being in Italy and getting
Yeah.
fun opportunity, and that you're scouting furniture in Italy. Like, that's,
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean,
Right.
you're so fancy.
Very.
Not everyone gets to do that. So
No,
that's
I
just
get
like a
it.
very exciting thing.
Yeah.
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 I love that. I think that this is where people sometimes just struggle. Like, I think Niall's 100% right that it just feels, when you have endless ideas that you could think of, and then you don't have the skills to put some of those professional photos and professional videos together, you're just like, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look less than, like, they did that, but it looks really good. I don't know
Yeah.
how to do that. So it puts them in paralysis where they don't feel like they can. They look
Yeah.
more, even the like not perfectly produced videos are very produced. I mean, it could be a makeup tutorial and it's got specific lighting and you've got ring lights and you've got, they're just like, okay, only have so long in my day to get this little video for you done, and then send it on your way. And often I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is often sound. Like the mics, they won't get to have like a lav mic, and they'll sound like they're in an echo chamber. They're like, and it will be like Nate Berkus or something, And I'm like, Nate, get
Where's
a
your
lav
mic?
mic. It will sound so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like to start with like the easier videos where you don't have to necessarily film yourself first. You can just be like a point of view reel.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Nice.
Niall was like, I can do though.
That's
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
comfy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
down for that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can totally start with that and then, work your way.
Do you have like a list of shots that you typically will ask a designer? Try to start thinking in terms of things as shots. Like you have an install, like to remind them, when do you have install days? When do you have anything going in? When is a new piece coming in that you're going to be examining? Are you going to a trade event? Like, can you get me shot? Do you try to give them a list, like homework all the time? Is that how you manage that?
I wouldn't say necessarily homework, but yeah, I asked them like if there are those specific days. Also, let me know like if the sound ever is too much. I can always go in my car.
Sure. We can't hear it.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. I asked them like what day. So for example, like last week, my client emailed me for some coincidence. She in July has like 3 photo shoots for, completed projects. And then based on that, I'm going to create like a shot list because I already know like the project itself, the process, the design directive. So based on that, I'm going to create like a shot list. And obviously like there's going to be a shot list of the details and, I'm going to get like inspirations for before and after videos and all of that. And then I'm going to send it to her. So it's not just going to be a shot list of like this, and this. It's going to be like an example of the real directive that I told you. So it's still going to have like, give me a shot of this, but based on this. So she has like something to compare to. So she's not lost and the photographer isn't lost either.
Right.
But yeah. And also obviously taking advantage of these photo shoots to actually have professional photos of themselves.
Yes. I love that. I love when you mix a photo shoot day in a professional like work shot, like some work shots for you, because it shows like this is what even though it's really hard because most of the designers I know on photo shoot day are like in sweats running around. It is an intense day to look good on because you're like, it is a lot of actual physical work, like moving everything out of that room and styling it perfectly. I was actually just talking to we were just talking to Scott Meachamwood, who is like this celebrity designer. He's worked for Ralph Lauren for years and then went out on his own, did his own fabric line. And he loves photo shoot day. And I was just blown away because I've been on many and I'm like, it's the worst day in my life. It's so stressful. I feel very stressed out and that's not even my photo shoot, but I feel very stressed out on those days because I'm like, there's so much money riding on it. The client's usually like wanting to come home and wanting their house back. They're like, why is this taking so long? But it does literally take so long to move you photograph everything, you move everything out of the room. I mean, it's got like their security cameras in it. It's got their mail. It's got bills, pictures of their kids. Like you're taking all that out, even though it was maybe finished a month ago. It's just totally lived in. So moving everything to the other room and then bringing in hydrangeas and arranging them perfectly and getting water for them. And you're organizing all the dishwasher detergent cubes in the little jar. And, it's just like, it just feels like a lot to do all of that and then look good. Look like you want to get your picture taken because it's a lot of running around. And you're very sweaty and gross.
Based on what you said, I already have 2 ideas that can make like at least 10 pieces of content. So like what you just said, that it's like stressful and hard, I would just be like, here's a reel of the moment. And then the moment showing you in sweatpants all stressed out and, taking all the personal belongings and styling and all of that, and then versus the pictures, because the pictures are all going to be like angelic and peaceful and
Oh,
beautiful.
well, they are. They're like this
Right.
moment of perfection that does not exist for anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
And
these beautiful moments of perfection that are like, wow, it's only going to look like this for 1 second.
Yeah. And it shows like all the hard work that you put into it just to get that moment.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other one, I would totally just show and be, authentic, because you take their personal belongings, the client's personal belongings. So, help people realize that that's an actual home and that it's going to be lived in.
Right.
And so,
like right now, the dining room looks like this.
Yeah.
So your kitchen can look like this.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Really good. Because people are always afraid that, oh, I don't want to have my house design. It's going to be too much. It's going to be too fancy. I can't live fancy. And it's like, no, actually, this is actually how they live. This is just for that moment, for that shot. So this was for like 20 minutes. This is for like 20 years, right? So that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
It is, because I do have that. I have heard that objection with design clients before, that the house will look too much like a magazine and not like them, and not feel like a home. And people want homes. I'm like, I always think that that's so crazy, because I know designers so well. I'm like, they will give you the best version of your home. It's not, they're not trying to make it look just like a magazine all the time. They know you've got kids, and they just want to make the right decision so that it actually holds up and looks good through the mess. You know?
Yeah. You want to infuse personality into your home.
Yeah. I love that you give the examples, because I think that to me feels a lot like paint by numbers for marketing. It's easier for them to remember. I love that you give them shot lists, because that's educating them, when they are doing a photo shoot, about what they could be missing out on, and so often I know lots of designers who've paid a lot of money for photography and then didn't get the shots they really needed to get. I mean, and you have such a limited amount of time, and you're not really so educated about what it is you need and how many shots you need through the day. And so it's very difficult if you don't have a list. It's really hard to make sure you're staying on track and getting the content that you need, and really milking that day for as much material as you possibly can.
Do you ever work back? Like, what if you have a client that doesn't have, like, they're like, I don't have anything, like, my pipeline is dry, right? I have nothing. I know I need the social media because I'm trying to market, right? But I don't have any prospects. I've finished up what I was working on. I've got camera roll filled with lots of like amateur shots of things that were, taken in progress, or maybe they were never, professionally photographed. I've got tons and tons and tons of that. Do you ever work backwards and say, well, let me see what you have and create content around that versus get shots of this? If that makes any sense.
No, that makes tons of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually what I do most of, because it takes a long time to, this, obviously. It takes a long time to have a professional shoot. So during that time, I'm like, well, what do you got?
Yeah, what you got?
Which is why I always ask, like, what are you doing during the week? Or are there any site visits, things like that? Because even just a site visit, a potential client wants to know, if you're going on a site visit, what does a site visit look like? If you're, going and talking to vendors, if you're like material sampling, all of that. But in your day-to-day, if you already have the progress shots, then I would basically ask you, like, hey, Niall, can you give me the progress shots? And then can you give me the 3D rendering of, what the space is going to look like? And then I would totally create a reel off of that, or, in progress, and then what it's going to look like post. It doesn't necessarily, we're always talking about reels. It doesn't necessarily have to be a reel.
Right. Yeah. Well, so for me right now, the only thing that gets new followers is reels. Like, I can't. The static posts are great for my current audience, but the reels are what brings in new followers almost exclusively. I mean, I've tracked it multiple times, and that's really what moves people. So, I mean, we do a lot of video content also on YouTube, and We do pretty well on YouTube too, but it's constantly reels are my number one for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like they changed it, Instagram.
Yeah, they're always changing it.
Yeah, because it is mainly like reels now are for non-followers, and then carousels are to maintain your current followers and create like
Right.
build a relationship. So you should definitely be posting both if you're not. But yeah, some people I feel like it really depends on the quality of the reels, because there are a lot of people who use these trends to just get these non-followers become followers, and then you're like you have like 15K, more followers, but are they really, seeing good quality videos, and are they really your potential clients?
Right.
Yeah. So
That's
I
key,
would,
right? Are they a potential
yeah,
person, which is very hard because a designer is local for most part. I would say there are some designers who do international design and design all over the country, but I would say 99% of interior designers are designing in their local area. And so how do you make sure that you're finding potential people to follow you that are actually in your local market?
yeah. I would start engaging with your local market. It's not just about posting, and the keywords. And it's way more about creating actual relationships, which is engagement for
Right.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I did a talk in Chicago about like how they can kind of do some of that. And, even just picking like one event that might happen per month. So, like right now, it's Mother's Day. So, you could think of like the 10 cutest places to have Mother's Day brunch, Their
Yeah.
interiors are beautiful, their menus are great. And you might write a little blog about that, and you might include that in your newsletter, and you might send that on Instagram and put it in stories and tag every one of those brunch spots. And now you're building a relationship with 10 restaurants. I mean, who wouldn't want to reshare that when they were named like the 10 cutest
Exactly.
places to have Mother's Day brunch? I would want to share that if I owned one of those restaurants. And if it is a
Yeah.
luxury business, now your blog is being seen by their followers, and their followers are people potentially in your own area that service the same kind of clients. So it would be like a bougie little tea room or whatever, that would attract the same type of luxury client that you would. So every month
Yeah.
there is something like that, and you could do like in June, the best places to buy the perfect picnic, and it could be little high-end fine foods places, and you could pick like what that would look like and have a picture of that, and here's my favorite spots. And it's just like
Yeah.
useful information that people would actually like, and that it doesn't have to be just interior
Interior
design,
design.
it has to be
Yep.
about like style and lifestyle and how people live. I think that that's the one thing that designers do is they improve the way people live.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like themes, right? Like Mother's Day or
No.
I don't know, Christmas. It can just be like, hey, I found a really cool thing here
Yeah.
and I'm going to share it.
Yeah. It could be like, this is a great the recipe that
Yeah.
I found that is going viral, or this is a really cool like little new shop that opened or in our area. But it's like local fodder, things that are happening in your area that are just interesting, and little festivals, whatever's going
Exactly.
on, just be a part of the community.
Community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's all what it's all about in the end, right? Like people supporting other people.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, people like to talk about things that are interesting, so that to me is the interesting stuff. I mean, people definitely want to talk about what is the cool places to go in your
Yeah.
own area. They love that. And there's lots of businesses that also serve the luxury market in your area. So thinking, even using ChatGPT to come up with a good list of like, what are the businesses that would service luxury clients in my, in a 30-mile radius from my house? Here's my address, and it could give you a list of businesses that would also service. How can you incorporate some of those into blog posts or posts, and so where you're sharing audiences, even looking on, I will tell you, I used to have a tip that I would tell my design friends that I know for a fact works. You can go into locations and you can go into accounts. So like think about like the local country club, you know, or the day school or the whatever, you know, it could be a high-end steakhouse. And you can look at their followers and you can just like
Yeah.
click on them and just like a few of their posts. And if you did that for like 2 minutes a day, three times a day. So in the morning, you're getting your coffee, you're going on to a location or you're going on to a business and you're just liking posts, liking a few posts, like click on a person, like 3 posts, click on another person, like 3 posts, click on another person, like 3 posts. And you do that for 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, 3 times a day. You're having your coffee, you're having your lunch, you're having, you know, you're watching TV at night. And you will get followers that are local from that. You will. I mean, you'll get like 10, 15 followers a day just from that. If you did that for 2 to 3 minutes a day. It's a pain. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's a pain to be because you have to be consistent with it or you don't get it. You know what I mean? But that's a great way to build relationships, like kind of like tapping people on the shoulder actively, like, hey, I'm a designer in your area. Hey, without being annoying. You're not like all up in their business. You're just liking a few of their posts.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I do with engagement. So normally I always recommend that the interior designers also, you know, get the engagement package. And it is only like a few hours a month. Obviously, you know, you can increase or decrease depending on the price, but it is basically that, except we also comment, reply to stories, you know, send DMs. But yeah, if only liking already gets you followers, imagine what like actually, you know, talking to someone via DM.
Right.
Obviously not something like salesy, creating a real relationship. But yeah.
But you can do things that are fun polls too in your stories that you can DM people over. So like you could be like, you know, what is your, you know, is your kitchen outdated or something like that? Do you feel like your kitchen needs a refresh or something like that? And then the ones that say yes, you could be like, hey, you know, I am a designer. I know you probably aren't interested in doing the kitchen right now, but I just want you to know here's some kitchens I've done, you know, and just like send them over to your portfolio and say, if you need any help, let me know, you know, that kind of open the doors of lines of communication with people that are in the mood for the thing that you're in the mood for right now, you know, with their I do polls all the time and then reach out to people because of that poll answer. So if they said, yes, I like this, or no, I don't like that, I will say, okay, well, here's the thing that we do, you know, are having a problem with PR. We did a DIY PR free guide. Here's a link to it, you know, things like that we know we can just immediately give people value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all about being proactive, but in a, you know, not very pushy way.
Not a pushy way.
I'm here,
even though I do call it selling in DMs. I do call that move selling in DMs, but you aren't really necessarily always selling. You could be giving them something free. You could do like a free checklist of what they would need if they renovated their kitchen, and you could just give that to them for free.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like some interior designers, I'm not sure if it changed in the last few years or not, but I feel like some of them are just like, if you start doing social media marketing, I want everyone to start following me, and I want people to start, you know, filling out my inquiry forms, and I want people to come to me. But it doesn't happen like that. You first have to like do the opposite. You have to be proactive, and then you know, once it starts flowing, then it gets to that way. But it won't like initially out of nowhere unless you're paying for it. But even then, it's not like,
and even then,
it's
hard. I paid for so many ads over the years, and sometimes they're really good. I mean, I do a lot of like filtering in my ads. I'm really good at making an ad, but I still have, there are some ads that do really well and some ads that are so bad. I'm like, okay, this got nothing. I don't know. People were just not into it. Like, it just is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like if you're doing ads, you have to have your organic strategy down first, and it has to be giving good results first in order for the paid ones to actually have results.
You know,
Mm.
I really need to get, we had a marketing talk that we did at High Point, Niall, and remember when Rich Shell said that salvage rate of local Architectural Digest ad? I was like, that is a hot, so this is what he told us. I have to have him come on the podcast. He's an interior designer. And
Yeah.
he was able to put in his area, because he's in Denver, Colorado, or
Yeah.
he's in the Colorado area, his just the Architectural Digest salvage rate. So it's like when they can't get enough ads, local ads, and they just really deep discount it, but it only shows up in your area. It doesn't show up in the Architectural
Right.
Digests that are in New York or anywhere else. It's just your area. And then you can parlay that into being, interior designer as seen in Architectural Digest, even though you paid for an ad there, which I was like, that is brilliant, actually. That was really slick, because you can get a really, really reduced rate to be featured in your local area in the Architectural Digest that shows up. And then you can also say now forever, I was featured in Architectural Digest, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, but it's very tricky. We just did a post because I had a friend of mine who's a designer, and they're feeling like they're getting inundated with awards and magazines that are pay to play. And it's really exhausting. I'm a little annoyed by it too, because I feel like everyone preys on interior designers. It's like they think they've got just like millions of dollars just sitting around to spend. And it's just like, it feels like it's a little predatory that they're always after interior designers to pay to play. And it's just feels like enough sometimes. Like, come on, an award that they win has to also get a fee to win the award, to be in the magazine. And some of the more prestigious awards too are still asking for fees. It's not just the junky ones. There are some junky magazines and junky like fake awards that you're like, okay, this is literally a made up award to get people to award. An Entrepreneur of the Year award.
Funny.
But there are some that are more prestigious that are still pay to play. And it does get to a point where it feels like they're a small business owner, and there's only so much money for marketing. And where do you spend that money? And are those kinds of things worth it?
Yeah.
Do you see returns on those kind of things?
Do I?
Yeah, like, do you think there's a good return on those kinds of things, or?
I feel like most interior designers, I feel like it's a little bit of an ego boost.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm not sure if like the ideal client or the potential client really cares.
They don't. Yeah.
It is way more about, your personality and your work and your process, and less about like how many awards you got, or even like, if there is a really good award, like a good name that there, and they got like a really good award out of it. Like, I don't think it matters for them,
Yeah.
Like,
I think you're right. I think that you're right. And I wouldn't suggest, like, unless it's something that you really do want to.
Which is okay.
The ego thing is not a bad thing. Like, I
have if you want it for yourself.
So
you should want things for yourself. I mean, it only, but it's just going into it. I think, like you're saying, Emanuela, like you don't go into it thinking that you're going to gain clients, because they don't really care about that award,
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Right. What do you think about, are you getting any pushback on associations for the same reasons? Because I also think that that's also becoming less important to clients over time, from what I'm hearing from designers, like the association accreditation.
Oh, so to me, like personally, I never even thought of associations. Like, I would not compare it to awards.
Right.
Would you?
Well, sometimes it's like an accreditation is, in some ways, it's like, just like an award would be, it's a symbol of this person is professional, So
right, like not everyone
professional association But I'm hearing from a lot of interior designers that more and more of them are telling me it matters less to them over time, you know,
You mean whether they're in an association or whether they're
whether they're in an
right?
association.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had it one. I was asked that one time in the very beginning, and I didn't even know honestly. They specifically were looking for a designer that was registered on the ASID website. This is when I was first like working, and they found me there and they hired me. I didn't know until they wrote my review that that's
Oh,
what they specifically
wow.
were looking for. But that was the only time. That was the only time that I had somebody say, and not directly, this was indirectly, because I didn't know that they wanted somebody that was associated with this particular or association. But no, that was over 10 years ago. I never heard that again.
So this is a question for you guys, because to me, the association was always more like a space where designers can help other designers,
Yeah.
and create a community. It was
No,
never about
I think in some way, I think it really is dependent. It's dependent.
Supposed to be, I would think.
I think it was that maybe it originally, from what I've heard, and a lot of these associations are really a lot older, so maybe
Mhm.
50 years or over 50 years old. And so the people that founded those associations are long gone, they're just not a part of the association anymore. And so I think that originally there was a need to be taken seriously, for sure. Like, we're professionals, we're not just pillow fluffers, that kind of
Yeah.
situation. I think there was also wanting to, educate the market that this is a serious business and there's a lot of like technical aspects to that. I think there was also a part of that was about creating laws that are like some lobbying and to make sure that some accreditations are through their particular, because then it became about money in some ways. So I think that was like, we want you to be accredited with our accreditation,
Yeah.
not that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of that. I think in the local chapter scene, there are some really amazing chapter presidents out there that I know are just so, so good at what they do. And then there are some that are just not interested in like bringing in a new group. It's the same 10 different people that show up to everything. A lot of them are
Mhm.
older. They rule it with an iron fist and keep it to themselves. And I think it makes it a little bit less welcoming to the younger designers who are asking questions. So it's just really, a lot of it depends on a lot of factors. I think, just the industry has changed a lot. It used to be very, from what I was very naive to it when I came into this. So I was not part of that process. But I think that from what I've heard from so many designers is that people just didn't really share resources before the
Right.
internet was a thing. It wasn't just because of interior design community. Before, people were starting to share resources online, and it started to open up that feeling of like people sharing information. People did not like to share. Like, if they had a workroom, they kept that secret. If they had a trade deal with a certain brand, they kept that secret because they felt like if they gave that away, they were the local person for that trade company. They knew the workroom. That was their secret sauce, and they didn't
Right.
want to share that with anybody locally at all.
Yeah. They didn't want competition.
No, they did not want
Yeah.
competition. They wanted to be the one that had the secrets of where everything, however, and it's a very complicated business. There's a lot
Right.
that you don't know when you graduate from design school. There's a lot of like, I have no idea. I mean, people do graduate from college without knowing that High Point exists. And I
Oh,
get lots of
wow.
students who tell me
That's
like,
yeah, I didn't know about it at all.
yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily like
Oh.
taught in school that High Point is a place to go, unless you're at High Point University, probably, But I mean, other than that, they're not saying this is where you go and this is how to fill out, if you're ordering furniture, this is how to fill out the paperwork so that you're ordering it, properly. this is how you make sure that the fabric is put on the sofa the right way so that you're not railroading it, like, you know what I mean? Like there's lots of nuance that I think that designers do not get that education. It's a lot about theories and colors and, space planning and things like that, and less about the actual physical product, right? Yeah. Is that true, Niall?
Yeah, 100% true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Oh,
that that's like disconnect, and that's a lot of times people are just like, they have to kind of learn this stuff by talking,
doing.
hopefully talking to others and then
Mhm.
searching on like now online. But back when that wasn't a thing, when you'd have to pick up and physically call someone and physically go to, these shows, there was a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of gatekeeping from what I hear, a lot of gatekeeping, and people just did not share information. And being online is really sort of what changed that. Interior design community kind of was like in the right place at the right time. We just started online. So we grew
Yeah.
like crazy, but it was really because of the internet. The internet was that space where people could say, oh, this place makes marble, mantles. I've never seen them before. You know what I mean? Like I could find that by searching Instagram, things like that.
Yeah. And it changed so much to the point where, like, on my onboarding form, I always ask, like, who are your competitors?
Right.
Most of them, they don't know.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah. I never really
Yeah.
thought about that.
How would a person know
Yeah.
who their how would one define who their competitors are?
Well, see, that's the thing. I think for interior designers, it's really hard to have like a direct competitor, because even if you're like in the same local space, your style is going to be different, or the way
Right.
that you work is going to be different, or your ideal client is going to be different. So I
Right.
wouldn't say that there's like a direct competitor. I have never met an interior designer who has a direct competitor, at least, but
Right.
like they could be competing with like 5 people in the same circle, but it has to be like maybe one specific ideal client might be in between, but it's not going
Yeah.
to be like, they're not going to be competing for various ideal clients.
So more like your contemporary then versus a competitor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah.
But do you think that,
Yeah.
it's worth it for them to go in and study who they are competing with locally? Like who are the designers in your town? What do they have on their website? Even if like so many designers I know, even though if they might have like Niall has a specific, like he has a good style. Like I love his style, but
It's
he
beautiful.
he could do I know he can do lots of different kinds of styles. I've seen some of his work. Like he doesn't necessarily have to stick to what he does.
Mhm.
Is it a good idea for them to look at what is in the market right now to see if there's something missing?
Yes.
Mhm.
So what the thing is, like, I feel like that's when you hire me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So do you
Because
do that? Do you do an
oh
analysis on
yeah.
their local market?
Yeah, for sure. I do a competitor analysis, because they don't really know, like, if they look at their competitor and their competitor is like, posting about this, or, their Pinterest has these pins going on, or their Google has this, they don't know like what is working for their competitor or not.
Right.
So that's when like someone who, specializes in social media marketing for the industry
And it
is a
sounds
really
like
good
you really know the
idea.
technical stuff too. It's not just like if you're
Mhm.
digging in to what their ads are and you're digging into what their pins are and you have good tools like that. Those are the good tools. Are you digging into like their websites too, like the SEM rush and what is
Yep.
oh, I love that. I love that. So that's a tool people use if they're going to find, so they can put your competitors in Nile, like their websites, and then it can start to tell them what all the keywords that your competitors are ranking for so that you can
Mhm.
outrank them in blog posts, like head to head.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
sneaky, but it's good. It does work.
it works so good. And
It
then, you
does.
can use Pinterest to, boost the blog even more,
Right.
which most designers don't do.
No,
Oh,
no.
so speaking of that, so is that just like linking your blog to Pinterest when you post?
No,
Is
it's
that what that
creating an
is?
image that you would pin on in Pinterest that goes back to that blog post. You can create like five
Yeah.
or six different images, you can put some with them with graph, like with words. Like, so if you wanted an image, about, you did a post that was about like, brown kitchens, that you thought were really cool, like, or stained cabinets are coming back, you could have 5 different pictures of stained cabinetry with the words like stained cabinetry is coming back, like, and then pin all of those to Pinterest, linking back to your blog site, your blog post.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't even have to do it once. Like you can, do 5 different images in one day and, different copy. Obviously, you don't want like the same wording for each pin, but you can just keep doing it, regularly, changing the picture and then changing the copy. Because you can always reword, there's unlimited ways that you can reword a caption so it can link back to the blog post.
Are you doing much with AI images for this kind of thing?
No. Should I?
I think that Pinterest is coming back, being a little bit tough on AI images, but I think there's always ways around it. Like when you delete some of the metadata in the photo, they can't tell. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but they are trying to break it down because they've been getting a lot of beautiful images that, it might be like, beautiful airy living rooms. Then you click the link and it goes to Temu. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like that kind of, those people that are real 24/7 marketers are really gaming the system, and it's making Pinterest a less pleasant place to find things. And so they are aware of that. But I think that they're more interested in cutting down on the things that are just completely unrelated and not necessarily on, Niall Johnson getting like some followers for, stained cabinetry. You know what I mean? I think if it's real and that's a good, the content is good, then they really care about good content. I think everybody cares about really good content.
Exactly. Yeah. What I do a lot of is I grab royalty-free images that are obviously related to like the blog, and then I put wording on top of it.
So I have a thing that I use for AI images that I really like. So I might find an image I like I was looking at power poses for women in because I think that there's a lot of women in our business. I found, this image, and then you can screenshot it, and then you can bring it over. My workflow is I put it into ChatGPT and I'll say, give me a detailed prompt to recreate this image. And then I take that prompt and I put it into Visual Electric, which I know it sounds like it's very convoluted, but it takes like a minute, less than a minute. You know what I mean? And I make Visual Electric has been my favorite for images because it was done by a designer. And so the images are a lot more realistic looking. And you can even say like, I want it to be with this camera. I want it to be black and white. I want it to be whatever you want the style of the photo to be. If you wanted it to be illustrated, you can make it illustrated, things like that. And it does a really great job. It really, some of their images are just so artsy and good. And it's pretty crazy. Like I have been playing around with it for a while. I mean, this is just their main page, and they've got like such cool, their images are cool. They're very cool, and they do a lot of photography and art, fine art, and how cool. I mean, like magazine worthy stuff.
Exactly.
And so it's a good way to get the image without having copyright-free problems down the road. Because I mean, the biggest thing is please, please, please never, ever, ever use someone else's images. And then even if you're on your blog, because that is a commercial use, and there are lawyers that literally crawl websites and then give you a $10,000 bill to pay because you've used someone else's image. Do not use anyone else's image on your blog or in your social as much as literally ever, because it is a bad idea. So copyright free for sure.
Are you having designers diversify content? Is there a specific way to present themselves on Instagram versus LinkedIn versus TikTok? or are you even saying to them, based on where you are, based on the work you do, it's not even worth it to present yourself on this particular app.
Oh,
Like we'll just focus on this app. I'm just curious.
yes, for sure. To all the above.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, there are a lot of clients who want to use TikTok, and TikTok, like, depending on, your ideal audience, it's just useless. Like, your ideal audience isn't going to be on TikTok. Obviously, like, depending on, where they are and like what their age, then I would totally suggest TikTok. But
Okay.
sometimes they're just like trying to be on TikTok because other people are on TikTok and it just doesn't work for them. And then I'm just like, well, maybe let's start on, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, where
Right.
your ideal client is more likely in. And then
Yeah.
once you have that nailed down, then you can go on TikTok and, test it out. I wouldn't even say like, let's pay for it 100%. Let's start doing it every month. I would be like, maybe let's test it for 1 month and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, for wording, I think depending on each platform, you should definitely word it differently. So for Instagram, I would Instagram definitely do like those personal posts. For LinkedIn, if you're going to do a personal post, obviously make it like still more formal and professional. And then depending, on the way that you even have, your tone of voice, usually on Instagram, if your tone of voice is like more friendly and more approachable, I would still keep it approachable on LinkedIn, but I would probably like shorten it, because there are people who have like, I don't know, 6 paragraphs on Instagram captions and then still like friendly and approachable. And if you're doing that on LinkedIn, then it's just not, it's not the style of what people are in there. They're not going to like relate to it.
Short and sweet on
So
LinkedIn.
I think it depends on, what your content is. Like if, for example, if your content is that sofa, I would, make it short and sweet. That sofa idea of like what you want your ideal client to feel like, feel the joy and all of that. Yeah. But, if there are like your process, then I would just keep it like that, because your process, posts are definitely just going to be more educational and informative. So I think the informative ones, I would just probably not even change anything. But yeah, basically it depends on the content. It's a constant on content basis.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard also LinkedIn newsletters are working for a lot of people, like doing a newsletter and turning your newsletter into a LinkedIn newsletter. If you have or your blog post into a newsletter is working for some people. They're getting people signing up for the new LinkedIn newsletter that they aren't getting on their regular newsletter. So I don't know. I have ignored LinkedIn for the most part. I just haven't gotten into it. It's something that I know I should. I definitely have a lot of connections with designers. I've got like 5,000 or so connections with designers, but I don't use it. I really just don't get over there.
Yeah.
I find it boring. So I don't like it myself. So I think that's why I don't get over there on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
It's just very boring to me.
Yeah.
Instagram is still my favorite by far, like at this point. I love TikTok, don't get me wrong. I actually really like TikTok, but I don't get as much traction on TikTok either. I think I have like a couple thousand followers or something on TikTok. But I enjoy videos in general. So I do like it. I don't get over there as much. I think I liked TikTok a lot more before it left and then came back. And then it seemed like the For You page was completely different and it was really weird. And I just haven't enjoyed it as much since.
Which is great, because Instagram is trying to be more like TikTok now.
I know. And they have that new Clipper, that new video editing. So they're trying to be just like CapCut too.
Edit.
Yeah, the edits. Yeah. I noticed somebody today for the first time, it said in my notifications, so-and-so, this person made a video with edits. And I was like, ooh, are we starting to get video notifications when someone does a video and it edits? And is that going to give somebody a boost if they do edit their video in edits versus CapCut or some other resource? I mean, in my experience with all of the social media, they give you the best algorithmic restriction, like least algorithmic restriction when they have something new. So when stories was new, when Reels was new, when Reels was new, I was getting 100 followers a day from posting a reel.
Wow.
I know, it was like back in the golden age of Instagram.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is so good. This is just like it used to be. And then shortly thereafter, it's like 10, 15, because they're like, all right, everybody's using it now. No.
That was good. And then it was.
Yeah.
But I think that's the same kind of thing when something new happens. So like jumping on the bandwagon and trying to really dig in on the new thing works, but we're all still struck with like how much bandwidth we have, which goes back to hire Emanuela.
Hiring. Yeah.
That's the moral of the story.
That's the moral of the story, guys. Hire Emanuela.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we were going to put all of your links in our blog post and on this information. So when you do want to hire Emanuela, you know exactly where to go to find her. So thank you so much, Emanuela. This has been so great. And I know will be so useful to our listeners who really, really do need help with social media.
Oh, thank you so much. Lovely as always talking to you both.
Love it.
Thank
Love it.
you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.